Welcome to the Weekly Buzz, powered by Newbook and the American Glamping Association. The Weekly Buzz, your go-to segment for all things glamping. Each week, we sit down with glamping experts from around the globe to bring you the valuable advice and insights, whether you're an enthusiast or an industry professional. Tune in, discover the latest trends, the tips, the stories that shape the world of glamping. In this segment, we are joined by the one and only Irene Wood, founder of The Fields, a glamping operator in South Haven, Michigan. Irene, thank you for joining us.
It's always good to be with you, Ruben, in the morning. I love it. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into it. What's the number one piece of advice that you've been given as a operator?
That I've been given or I give, because those are two different things. I would say, given when I first started operating, there was nobody doing it in the Midwest. So just kind of the resources were just lacking. So I was using people who were just straight up entrepreneurs and asking them for advice. So really just the entrepreneur spirit is there's no way out but through. And I would just tell everybody that's starting any business, but particularly one that's, has what I think to be more variability than others, is that there's really just no way out. It's through. And then the next one we always say, kind of, and I tell everybody is if you cut a corner, you're going to get caught. So if you're doing something and you know you should do something better, you should probably do that something better right away, because consumers, and particularly those that are in hospitality, are very savvy and very smart. And so I would tell you, if there's a corner you're thinking of cutting, don't, because you will get caught. So those are my two.
And if someone is just starting out, what's the most important thing that should be focused on the front end of the process?
So I was actually thinking of this yesterday as I was, working all day. And I thought, you have to decide when you're starting a business if this is going to be your lifestyle, or you have a lifestyle and you want this to be an augment. And the minute you make that delineation, it will start to line up all the other decisions that you make. So if it's going to be an augment, then you'll be doing your cash flow statements and you'll be figuring out if you can afford to do the business based on you have a business, you have a job, that's supporting your family, that's supporting your lifestyle. And then this is just, something that's like a fun add to your lifestyle. If this is something that is going to be your lifestyle and your job, then those are things you're going to be making decisions from a different standpoint, because you're going to need to pay yourself. Your business is going to need to be profitable. You're going to have a really strong business plan. You're going to have to understand your market and your consumer. And so in those particular cases, I would always say, if anybody's asking me, I'm like, is this just your like weekend hobby, or is this where you're like jumping in with 2 feet and, investing your own money? And if that's the case and there's much more risk, then you have to certainly be more thorough in your diligence to decide if your market supports it. Do you understand your consumer? And you're looking at it from not just a glamping business, but is this a viable business?
The customer preferences are always changing, and it's important for operators to stay on top of that, and even more importantly, ahead of that. So
Yeah.
how do you stay ahead of that?
So I stay ahead of it by traveling. So I stay ahead of it by going and doing exactly what it is that I do, which allows me to see, operators are doing some other things that are better, but it also keeps me fresh as a traveler to be able to say, oh man, I didn't even know that this offering was taking place. This was really engaging. The consumer is really liking it. My clientele and oftentimes reflects really the operator, but in this particular case, I'm not a big TikToker. I'm not a big social media person. I think that the speed at which those preferences change is exponential, which would be really hard for an operator to keep up with it. So just by being a natural traveler, you're going to start to see some offerings that are out there that you just prefer. And those are going to be those ones that are going to touch you, and then you're going to start to implement at your own location.
It's one thing to get an operation up and running. It's a whole other thing to keep it up and running year in and year out and be successful. What are components that a glamping operation needs to have to maintain that success year in and year out?
This is gonna sound crazy, but I think passion and pride. So the first one is your passion. You have to be passionate about what it is that you're offering to somebody, your product. So in my particular case, I'm really passionate about my hometown. I'm passionate about travel. I love the juxtaposition of luxury in the outdoors, which oftentimes doesn't make sense until you're actually doing it. And then you're like, that really, putting together a dinner in a lavender field. And, we have a lavender field here. And then, cutting the lavender and putting it on somebody's beds. Those are all the sweet touches that we're able to play with. While at the same time, I would say pride. So, making sure that your property is reflective of what you represent. So if you're luxurious, that your property feels clean and tidy, and if you're family oriented, that your property lends itself towards that. If you're couples only, do you have lots of privacy? So I think making those passion and pride will outbeat anybody any day, and will keep you with a sustainable business year over year over year, because it translates and guests can tell.
Let's look into the crystal ball. What's on the
Yeah.
horizon in the industry in the next 5 years? What do you see?
So I absolutely see that the travel preferences of myself, my friends, is moving more towards these outdoor experiential hotels, bed and breakfast, glamping resorts. I mean, they kind of fall under that category. With that, I'm feeling that most guests want everything to be, and I don't want to use the word all inclusive, but we arrive and we don't really have to think, and everything is curated over that duration, whether it's food and beverage focused. But I also feel like there's just been a very strong push towards this, farm to table, farm to retreat, as Collective calls it, but just augmenting hyper local with the area that you go, and whatever that hyper local is. So we'll use Michigan, my location, for example, Lake Michigan, the arts, we're the fruit belt. So a lot of culinary. We also have, they call us the New Napa. I would beg to differ. We don't even come close, but wineries and, biking and health and wellness, and really just offering opportunity for guests to have access to things that otherwise they wouldn't have access to, but on an incredibly hyper local, because a lot of the stays are not going to be very long. They're 2 to 3 days. So how do you really capture them and give them the best of what you are? It's not offering the West in the Midwest. It's offering the Midwest in the Midwest.
Well, Irene, thank you for letting us steal you away from your construction project. I know you have a lot of exciting things going on at the
Yeah,
property. Everybody, make sure that you check out the Fields, a glamping operation in South Haven, Michigan. And Irene, thank you so much for joining us today.
always. Thank you, Ruben.